In 2008, Simon Estech claimed, "The more we talk about representations of nature, the more it becomes clear that there is a need to talk about how contempt for the natural world is a definable and recognizable discourse, what we may call ecophobia." Though there has been a conflict developing among ecocritics, theorizing ecophobia and structural definitions some ecocritics seek. Estech's concept of ecophobia may seem overly theoretical or even exaggerated. Like, we don't hate the environment, right? I mean, except we kind of do. I'm a literary cult that believes that everything and anything is a text, and that includes video games, and it especially includes my favorite video games, and it especially includes the Resident Evil series, which is one of the defining series for me as a human being individual. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how eco-criticism and the eco-gothic lens kind of correlates to Resident Evil. And while I'm at it, I mean, I guess I should also mention that there are actually quite a few lenses which would be fantastic to look at Resident Evil with. However, I'm choosing eco-critical. Now, hang on with me. I know it's kind of an out there lens, but it's perfect for Resident Evil. And I'm not saying that there aren't other lenses that are great, because, I mean, Resident Evil is a very dense series, and it is capable of being looked at through various lenses. And I agree with that, and I think that it has a lot of potential. But, and hear me out, today we're just going to talk about eco-criticism. And we might talk about it more because this is kind of more of a, a brief overview. And we're going to look into that more as we proceed with my channel. And you know what? Let's talk about Resident Evil in literary lenses, man. For those of you who might not be familiar with Resident Evil is essentially the series of several companies and kind of dictators or cult leaders, various bad dudes who are in a position of power, trying to profit off of the use of bioweapons through bioengineering. And they do this essentially just for the fat checks and for power. They will seize all the power, and they don't care who they step on to get that power. And because it is spearheaded originally by these organizations like Umbrella, Tricell, I mean, a few others I'm not mentioning, that means that there is a lot of room to take a Marxist view of this. And I think a Marxist view is fantastic for Resident Evil, but that's not what we're doing here today, yo. That's not what we're doing. Because the rampant expansion of these companies began with the nefarious umbrella organizations branches in United States of America and France, but their actions have the largest effects across various war zones in rural areas on indigenous people and just everyone else who isn't directly responsible for starting this. So yes, you can also analyze Resident Evil with a post-colonial critical race lens, and again, that's awesome. It lends itself to it fantastically. Maybe one day, but that day is not this day. And Resident Evil is also a series which heavily emphasizes its characters, with many of them returning again and again, including various female characters which subvert gender expectations.
You want stars? I'll give you stars!
Yet despite the fact that Resident Evil does break traditional gender norms, break from those traditional roles, it does still kind of suffer from the good woman archetype and the bad woman archetype. Essentially, the good women obey the patriarchal laws of society, and the bad women, they break those rules. They break from the patriarchy. Such as Ethan's wife, Mia, who's portrayed as a loving and caring mother and wife, versus how bad women are portrayed. Such as the Demetris triplets, or even Wesker's maybe, possibly girlfriend hookup or exploited trust fund Exceligion, and how she is depicted in Resident Evil 5. She totally gets killed by Wesker, by the way. It's kind of terrible, but you know, she asks for deciding, can I be your equal, Wesker?
Oh, I have my eyes set on something much bigger. You'll be needing a partner, right? Someone suitable to join you in your new world? I believe I've proven I'm worthy, haven't I?
Perhaps you have.
Look, I'm not trying to defend the series or attack it. Like I said, I love it, but it does kind of fall into these archetypes, and it's more of a cultural thing. Again, it's not a judgment on the series. We're just noticing things. But you can definitely look at Resident Evil from a feminist lens, and it lends itself, again, very well to a feminist lens. So, why am I approaching Resident Evil from an eco-critical lens? Well, this series is called Biohazard in Japan, so we can't really ignore the bio and biohazard. That would be ridiculous, right? But no, I actually have better reasons besides just the bio and biohazard. Reason number one, I think the eco-critical lens in itself is very important. Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, which was written in 1962, actually was considered one of the first modern renditions of eco-criticism. And what it did was it essentially looked at how pesticides made by humans were destroying plants, and how that effect then in turn caused all kinds of bad things, including farmers to begin committing suicide and some pretty grim stuff. But the point of the matter was, when we as humans interact with nature and the environment, it also has an effect on us. So what that is we are part of an ecosystem, and eco-criticism somewhat sees us as part of the ecosystem, but it also sees us as people who are trying desperately not to be in that ecosystem, who try to separate humans and society. Forget the fact that we're mammals, we're two separate things. But eco-criticism is still considered a newer literary lens. It's not as widely approved as some of the other lenses which I've described, and it's certainly fresh. It certainly still has things going on with it. It's still being formed in many ways, and I feel that for anybody who's watching this, especially anybody enrolled in the English program, anybody who is just in some way wants to learn about this stuff, even if you're just curious for your own sake or you're curious as a writer, I think being familiar with some terms of eco-criticism is very helpful. And I think that I want to be able to convey what I have paid thousands of dollars for to y'all for free, man, for free. So I'm going to talk to you guys about eco-criticism, which is a little known theory. But the second reason I'm going to cover this is because eco-criticism, because it's a newer theory and because it's still picking up steam, it encompasses everything. It encompasses a little bit from all of the theories which I've discussed and several which I have not discussed. So I think eco-critical theory, on top of just how well Resident Evil lends itself to it, is the lens that we are going to use to discuss it. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add a lens on top of my lens. So we're going to look at Resident Evil with the eco-theory lens, and we're going to add the Ecogothic lens on top of that. And yes, Ecogothic is a thing. When I first heard about it, I thought it was kind of ridiculous. However, it's a thing. It exists. And it was largely made popular by Ecogothic in 19th century American literature, which was edited by Keatley and Civils. So what is the Ecogothic lens? Keatley and Civils state, adopting a specifically Gothic eco-critical lens illuminates the fear, anxiety, and dread that often pervade the literary and cultural relationships of humans to the non-human world, to animals, plants, minerals, climates, and ecosystems. It orients us. In short, the more disturbing and unsettling aspects of our interactions with non-human ecologies. And that's it. That's Resident Evil. As Keatley and Civils write, to be under the shadow of death is to be squarely in the domain of the Gothic. And indeed, Resident Evil plants itself firmly in the shadows of death. Everything about the series, from the ominous Spencer estate mansion hidden deep within the woods of the Arklay Mountains to the European castles seen in Resident Evil 4 and 8, elicit a ghost of the past. These are settings that call upon deep fears, that bring up a sense of history that we cannot shake, but which we feel immediately upon stepping foot into these settings. We fear the past, and the past is the repressed other, which threatens to emerge from memory and into the present at any moment. And that's where Estoc's ecophobia really comes into play. Ecophobia stems from the need to control. In a sense, we're afraid of nature because it resists our control. That is something that humans cannot control. Try as we might, it will always come back. It is the repressed other, never the vanquished other. So when we are looking at ecophobia and Resident Evil, we need to look at where it started. Oswald Spencer, the owner of the Spencer estate and one of the founding members of Umbrella Incorporated. If it is our quest to dominate the natural world and assert humanity's strengths through any means that make us fear anything which challenges our worldview, then Oswald Spencer is entirely motivated by ecophobia.
A new superior breed of humans, given birth by the progenitor virus. The Wesker children were entrusted with endless potential. Of them, only one survived. You.
Are you saying I was manufactured?
I was to become a god. Creating a new world with an advanced race of human beings. However, all was lost with Raccoon City. Despite that setback, your creation still holds great significance. Now my candle burns dimly. Ironic, isn't it? For one who has the right to be a god.
Spencer is the originator of the T-virus, which is the virus which first creates the undead and creates various other monsters. Now, of course, that's been retconned. It's not the oldest virus in existence, but again, whole other topic for discussion. The point is, he created the T-virus and he created the Wesker children as an attempt to overcome death itself, to overcome the natural rot within the human body, and to create something that was beyond human, that was no longer natural, that is manufactured. And Oswald Spencer does all of this, again, because he is afraid of death, because he wants to be better than his natural human restrictions. It's why when he talks about the Wesker children, he is also praising them. No matter what is about to happen to him, he views this creation as his ultimate act. So he is really going to hype up Albert. And he's going to completely forget about Alexa Wesker, but I mean, I guess, again, that's a whole other subject. I mean, I know that she wasn't planned, but like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like the writers could have done something to kind of allude to the fact that there's somebody else. Again, other topic, not talking about it. Regardless, Wesker does kind of break his stoicism when he finds out that he was manufactured. I mean, he's not too worried about it, though, because Wesker also shares Spencer's beliefs. He is Spencer's unofficial son. He is the inheritor of the Umbrella legacy. And because of that, he also wants to remove himself. He wants to create an apex predator, but he wants that predator to be completely manufactured by his design, not nature's. He really isn't that torn up, because he also desires to be superior to the pathetic humans. Another Gothic fear shown is one's past or their sins and transgressions coming back to haunt them. Spencer is still being pursued despite his old age and seeming inability to cause more discord or create more Weskers. He is haunted by his inability to be perfectly unnatural, and as such, Wesker's appearance is simultaneously a reminder of his repressed past and his now unobtainable future ambitions. A reminder of his age, his decay. It's also worth noting that when Wesker kills Spencer, he does so in an identical way to how he was previously killed. So again, these are the son repeating the mistakes of the father being chased by the son. There is a definite circle of death that is playing out throughout the series.
The ultimate life form. Tyrant.
Wesker, you've become senile.
Chris, you'll never understand. It's magnificent.
I mean, to be fair, Wesker also came back and like he is dead now, but like I mean, it's temporary, you know. I mean, it's not temporary, but he's gonna come back one day. I'm calling it now. He's gonna come back. People, half the Resident Evil community is gonna hate it. Half of them are gonna be enthralled. It's gonna be a mess. I promise you that. He's probably gonna fight Ethan's daughter. But regardless, Wesker, despite his plans for the future,
Ouroboros will be released into the atmosphere, ensuring complete global saturation.
remains a reminder of the past who is haunting the present. And unfortunately for Wesker, he's not allowed to have a future as a member of the past. Okay, so you're probably wondering, why is Wesker considered a embodiment of nature when he said it himself? He was manufactured. And to that I say, that's a pretty good question. I got you. I actually thought that through. But how exactly is Wesker a symbol of nature when everything about him was manufactured?
You're a laboratory experiment, Rogers. Everything special about you came out of a bottle.
Well, except Resident Evil 5 makes it a point to show that the modern incarnation of the virus is used by Umbrella largely comes from flowers. Yes, these flowers are processed, but within the canon of Resident Evil, these flowers were used by ancient societies to make their own bioweapons until that led to the collapse of that old society. But these plants are not a symbol of old world power. They are surrounded by colonizer machinery, and as Matthew N. Civils writes in his essay, Vegetal Haunting, the Gothic Plant in 19th Century American Fiction, while speaking on American Gothic literary tradition, we find that these literary plants are far more than just inanimate scenery. They are sites for trauma, markers of oppression, uncanny organisms, spectral figures. These are plants as a representation of the other and of colonialism. Then, of course, Resident Evil 8 further develops this concept by showing that Spencer was inspired by the living human fungus crossbreed Miranda, Mother Miranda to some, who had sort of just stumbled into some cave fungus which turned her into a super powerful fungal matriarch during the time of the Black Death. Nature saved her and turned her into a monster. Sort of like Wesker. The argument could be made that this is another example of Spencer's past coming back for him. That might be a bit more of a reach, as Mother Miranda wasn't introduced until years after Spencer and Wesker's death, but Chris Redfield, Wesker's nemesis, was the one who uncovered the connections. So I might have to touch on that later, but I mean, Chris is such a dense character and so heavy in symbolism throughout Resident Evil. That's a whole other can of worms that we might have to open up later. We'll see. We'll see. No promises, but we'll see.
Spencer, here. No way.
So Wesker, Mother Miranda, and even Spencer are all monsters. And I mean so in the Ecogothic sense. They challenge what it means to be human. And I don't just mean that some of them are able to transform radically and that they're able to shift their states. No, I don't mean anything about super strength or super money. What I mean is they're monsters in the sense that they challenge human identity. They challenge what it means to be a distinct creature separate from nature. Jeffrey Jerome Cohen wrote Monster Culture, 7 Theses. And by the way, it's fantastic. I recommend everybody who is moderately interested in monsters, moderately interested in literature analysis to read this because it's great and it's short and you could Google it and you'll find it. It's like the third option. You'll find it. I can't say that I acquired it not through my university, but there is a way in which you can find it. But I'm certainly going to make a video on that. That one I am certain. I, again, don't know when, but that is a future video for sure. It is, monster culture is something very important to the analysis of video games, cinema, classical literature. You just can't escape monsters. Just kind of the point, I guess. While I highly recommend that you read the full essay, it certainly deserves as much. I would like to pay particular attention to Thesis 3. The monster is the harbinger of category crisis, in which Cohen writes, the refusal to participate in the classifactory order of things is true of monsters generally. They are disturbing hybrids whose externally incoherent bodies resist attempts to include them in any systematic structuration. And so the monster is dangerous, a form suspended between forms that threatens to smash distinctions. Mother Miranda and Albert Wesker are not monsters then, it's just because they sometimes look like monsters. They're monsters because they blur the lines between the natural and the human world. They force us to confront a lack of distinction. Albert, Miranda, and Oswald are more terrifying than a zombie, not because they are more distinct or more uncomfortable to look at, but because they actively blur the lines between human and nature, man and monster. Cohen's Thesis 7, the monster stands at the threshold of becoming, states of the monster. Monsters ask us how we perceive the world and how we have misrepresented what we have attempted to place. They ask us to reevaluate our cultural assumptions about race, gender, sexuality, our perception of difference, our tolerance towards its expression. They ask us why we have created them. These are the creators of monsters. While yes, a zombie is frightening in itself, and it is certainly a monster that bridges the animal and the human, I would say that the main difference is that the zombies are much more so depicted as animalistic, with a base animalistic desire to feed.
The subjects have the simplest of motor functions, perhaps a little memory, virtually no intelligence. They are driven by the basest of impulses, the most basic of needs.
Which is?
The need to feed.
There's something much more frightening, because they make us consider maybe the horror in the monster is not the natural world. Maybe the horror in the monster is the human injected into the natural world. So I've mentioned a lot about categories. So what exactly do I mean by categories? Well, Val Plumwood introduced the idea of dualized pairs, and it was further established by Greta Gard. And essentially what a dualized pair is, it is a pair that is created by society in which one form is deemed superior and the other form is then subjected to be, well, subjugated by the superior duality. And again, I'm not saying I endorse these pairs, and that's also not what Greta Gard or Val Plumwood were saying. It's more so that we need to be aware of them so that we can act accordingly. These pairs include culture/nature, rationality/animality, male/female, heterosexual/queer, reason/the erotic, and self/other. This is by no means a comprehensive list, and that's not even the full list that they provide. And it should be mentioned that Val Plumwood, when they made this list, also initially said that this was not comprehensive. There's always more to be added, and there will constantly be more added. So when Albert Wesker says,
"Let's just say that I'm a ghost, coming back to haunt your dear brother."
Or when Spencer says,
"Welcome, subjects. Prepare to assist me or die on the altar of my ascension."
And when Mother Miranda says,
"Once dawn breaks, the ceremony will be complete, and I will become her true mother, bound for eternity in blood."
They're invoking a sense of fear through their blurring of these dualities. It is through breaking these dualities that they become the monster. But here's the thing about monsters. We as a society love monsters, and we especially love seeing them trespass because they are able to give us authority. They're able to show us that it is okay to completely disregard the societal boundaries, that the societal boundaries don't exist, and they're cool, is what I'm saying. And because of that, they have been largely used by marginalized groups to represent themselves, and I don't think it's a one-to-one comparison. I think that that might be a little problematic if we start viewing them as a complete one-to-one comparison. However, they certainly represent the other. And because of that, it is important to understand why monsters are important in our society. And there's a lot to be said about them. Again, Cohen's essay is fantastic. Go read it when I'm done. But I mean, there is a problem with Resident Evil and its monsters. And I think a lot of it we could see with the Demetris siblings and, of course, Lady Demetris, who was so much more popular than anyone could have expected.
Go a little stale.
Then let's devour his man-flesh quickly, Mother. But I am the one who captured him.
Now, daughters. First, I must inform Mother Miranda. But later, well, there will be enough for everyone. Put him up.
Because, let's be clear, Lady Demetris and her daughters, they are LGBTQ plus icons, baby. They are perfect. They are the feminist role models that we need. So they're evil and whatever. And you know, again, I want to be clear, these are not one-to-one comparisons. But they are definitely examples of homosocial bonding, which is just essentially the bonding of same-gendered individuals as very close. What I mean is that they blur the lines of sexuality and challenge patriarchy at every step. And I believe that that is why they were so popular in advertising, more popular than Capcom could have ever guessed. This wasn't just a gender change to Dracula. This was a reinterpretation of vampirism, closer to the natural world and more willing to step out of heteronormativity. And that's why playing a male character and going into their house and one by one murdering the sisters and then fighting Demetris, who's avenging the death of her kinda sorta daughters, it kind of feels a little anticlimactic because I think a lot of us liked the daughters, liked Demetris. I mean, by the time you defeat Lady Demetris, she's not even humanoid anymore, and I would argue she's nowhere near as fright-inducing either.
Flesh and bones, I will devour all of you!
I think that is where Resident Evil fails to be truly and utterly Gothic. At the end of the day, Resident Evil is an optimistic game. You play heroes, you champion the good in society, and you are willing to risk yourself for your daughter, for the greater good of humanity. You're a hero. And Capcom, Resident Evil, it's about that hero's journey. God, I really want to do a hero's journey thing on Chris. Can I do it? We'll see. But the thing is, whatever horrors the protagonists come across, we know that at the end of the day, they are willing to step up. They're willing to face their fears and to try and write a better path for humanity. And that means that the Gothic must be repressed. It must be sealed away. And that's kind of a shame when you have some monsters who become relatable. And I want to be clear, I think that's a good thing in a video game where you've put in hours to be the hero. I think you deserve to feel like the hero at the end. You deserve that. It is a video game at the end of the day, and it's a little bit different than reading literature or watching a movie. A bad ending means that hours of your time has been thrown away. Hours spent trying to survive are met with death, and that's not fun. At least it's not fun to myself most of the time, and I don't think it's fun to a lot of people. And that's why Chris and company, they need to be heroes. They need to make sure that you feel like it was worth it.
More and more I find myself wondering if it's all worth fighting for. For a future without fear? Yeah, it's worth it.
Hey guys, I wanted to catch up with you guys again, and thank you so much for watching what has been one of my most heavily researched videos. It is my most heavily researched video. Let's call it what it is. I'm really glad you guys are here. I would love for you guys to stay around. Go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and leave your comments. Tell me what you guys would like me to talk about next. I might not do Resident Evil right away, but I'm definitely coming back to Resident Evil. But there are some great topics that are out there, and if there's something you want me to discuss, I will definitely go ahead and, put it on the list. I have a lot of stuff I got to do, but I want to do what people are interested in. That's ultimately my goal. To catch up with myself, I have been gone for several months. That is because I was pursuing my master's degree. I will be defending my thesis in 8 days, so we'll find out if I am an English master's student or English master's recipient soon enough, or if I am relegated to failing for all eternity into the Gothic as the repressed other. But in any case, I'm really glad you guys are here. Again, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, do all of that stuff. And I suppose the other thing I should mention is while I was gone, I have actually been busy. I have not been as busy as I would like. Again, these last couple months have been spent writing my thesis. But if you are to go on a podcast platform, you can watch myself and my good friend and companion, Zachary, who is a other English master's recipient. He's already graduated. We are overly qualified for podcasting, I suppose. But we talk about cartoons, and we have ourselves a good time. We have a couple that are on the editing board right now, just while we have been finishing things up. But in any case, I'm really glad you guys came out. I'd love to hear from you guys some more and see what you guys would like to see in the future. This channel is obviously to provide you guys with entertainment first and education not second. I think that's going to be a coupled thing. In any case, it's been a pleasure making this video. It's one that I've been holding off on for quite some time, and I am just exuberantly excited to be making this for you guys. I hope you guys have a great day. Hope you guys subscribe. Anyway, later, guys.